I should have never downloaded it. It was a joke at first, a late-night impulse buy to entertain myself during the lulls in life. The app had popped up on my feed after scrolling mindlessly through social media, a cheap thrill to break the monotony. Talk to spirits, uncover messages from beyond, it had promised. Seemed innocent enough. Just another gimmick designed to spook, right? The interface was simple, like a knockoff of an old messaging app, retro with static-laden graphics, designed to look like it belonged on a VHS tape. A chat box, a button to summon a spirit, and a feed that kept track of the conversations. I thought it would be fun, maybe get a cheap scare or two. I didn't think I'd find anything other than programmed responses and scripted prompts. When I first used it, the app didn't do much. I hit the button, and a chat screen popped up. For a few seconds, the screen glitched, lines of static warping the feed like an old TV with poor reception. Then the text appeared. "Hello, I am here." I laughed to myself. The message was blunt, impersonal. It didn't even try to play into the ghostly theme. I typed back a sarcastic response. "Who's here, Casper?" The app didn't answer for a while, then eventually a single word flashed on the screen. "Stay." Weird. I rolled my eyes, expecting it to throw out more cryptic nonsense, but nothing happened. It seemed like a poorly written gimmick after all. I closed the app, a little disappointed that I'd wasted my time on something so lazy. I didn't think much of it. The next day, something strange happened. I was heading home from work, and as I unlocked my front door, I noticed something odd. The light in my living room was on. Now, I'm always meticulous about turning off the lights before leaving. The sight of the warm glow through the curtains immediately made me uneasy. Did I leave it on? No, I couldn't have. Inside, everything was in its place, just as I had left it except for that light. I told myself it was nothing, just a small mistake. But a feeling of unease settled over me, like a shadow creeping in the corners of my mind. I couldn't shake the sensation that I was being watched even though I was alone. That night, I pulled out my phone before bed, more out of habit than anything. My thumb hovered over the Spirit app. I hesitated, but then I opened it. Maybe it would distract me from the gnawing tension I felt. As soon as I launched the app, the screen flickered again. The same static and warped lines. A new message awaited me. "I saw you." It was strange, almost unsettling. I hadn't used the app since the night before, and the idea that it had somehow seen me gave me chills. But of course, it was just a line of code. No way the app could know anything about me. I decided to play along. "Oh yeah? What did you see?" I typed, expecting another vague or cryptic answer. There was no immediate response. For a full minute, the screen remained blank, static crackling across it now, and then the message appeared. But it wasn't what I expected. "You left your light on." I froze. My pulse quickened. There was no way it could know that. I hadn't told anyone about the light. My phone slipped from my hand, bouncing softly on the bed. I stared at the message. The words etched into the screen like a taunt, like it knew something I didn't. Panic started to build in my chest, but I forced myself to think rationally. It had to be a coincidence. Maybe the app had programmed responses to trigger based on common everyday experiences. After all, how many people forget to turn off their lights? But even as I tried to reassure myself, I felt an uneasiness prick at the back of my neck. I deleted the app. Whatever thrill I thought I'd get out of it was no longer worth the creeping dread it had brought me. But deleting it didn't help. Over the next few days, things only got worse. I started receiving texts, real texts, from a number I didn't recognize. At first, they were innocent enough, cryptic lines like, "I see you," or "We are near." I ignored them, assuming it was some bot or prank. But then the messages became more personal. "How did your meeting go?" "The one where you spilled your coffee." I hadn't told anyone about that. It had happened at work earlier that day. I had been late to a meeting and, in my rush, spilled coffee all over myself. I hadn't even mentioned it to my coworkers. I blocked the number, convinced it was someone playing a cruel joke. But the messages kept coming, always from new numbers and always referencing things that only I knew. Small, mundane details about my day that I hadn't shared with a soul. You left the window open. You were on the phone for 20 minutes. Don't forget your umbrella. The worst part was, they were right. Every detail they mentioned was true, down to the last word. Every time I saw a new message, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, twisting tighter and tighter with each passing day. It didn't take long for me to realize that the app, the one I thought I had deleted, was still somehow active. I would hear faint notifications, sounds that echoed through my phone even when it was off. It had followed me, infected my life, like a parasite. No matter what I did, no matter how many times I reset or cleared my phone, it was always there. That night, I finally broke down. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every creak in my house, every flicker of light made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone, shaking as I powered it on, and sure enough, there it was, the app icon back on my screen like it had never left. I opened it. The familiar static buzzed, and my pulse quickened as I braced myself for whatever message was waiting for me. I'm here. The words felt heavy, suffocating, like the air had thickened around me. I couldn't respond. I didn't want to, but something urged me to keep watching to see what it would say next. Seconds passed, then minutes, and finally the screen flickered and a final message appeared. Look behind you. I didn't move. I couldn't. The words on the screen were simple, but they felt alive, as if they carried weight far beyond their letters. My breath hitched and every nerve in my body screamed at me to run. But something deeper, something primal, rooted me in place. The room was silent. Too silent. No faint hum from the fridge, no distant hum of passing cars, just my breathing and the faint buzzing of my phone in my hand. Slowly, I forced my eyes away from the screen. My bedroom was as I had left it, small, cluttered with clothes, and papers, dimly lit by the glow of my desk lamp. Nothing unusual. Nothing behind me. The door was closed, the corners of the room still dark but ordinary. I turned back to the phone, hoping the message had been some sick joke, but the app had changed. The screen was black now, no static, no chat window. Then, like an old CRT television coming to life, an image crackled onto the display. It was grainy, blurry, as if filmed through a scratched lens, but I could make out enough to recognize it instantly. It was my room, my bed, me. The phone trembled in my hands as I stared at the live feed. The perspective was wrong, slightly elevated, almost as if someone were standing in the corner of my room, filming me from the shadows. I could see myself sitting on the bed, frozen like a deer in headlights, phone clutched in white-knuckled hands. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a glitch. Someone or something was watching me. The image flickered and distorted, the screen warping as static overtook it. When it cleared again, the view had shifted. It was closer now, angling toward the back of my head. My heart raced as I realized I wasn't looking at a recording or a clever trick. This was happening in real time. I whipped around, heart pounding, expecting to see someone standing there, a figure looming just out of view. But the room was empty. Empty, but wrong. The shadows seemed deeper now, too dense for the soft glow of the lamp. The air felt heavier, pressing down on my chest like a weight. My breathing grew shallow as my gaze darted to the corners of the room. Nothing. I turned back to the phone. The feed was still active, but now the view had shifted once more. Closer. Still. It wasn't just behind me anymore. It was next to me, right at my shoulder. I couldn't feel anything. No breath, no movement, but I knew it was there. Something. Someone. My instincts screamed at me to run, to leave the house, and never come back, but I couldn't tear my eyes from the screen. The camera panned slightly, tilting upward until I saw it. A shape. A face, or what was left of one. Pale, hollowed eyes stared back at me through the grainy feed, its mouth stretched into a gaping void that pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, as if it were trying to speak but no sound could escape. The app glitched, freezing on the image for what felt like an eternity before a single word appeared, overlaying the screen in stark white text. Why? I dropped the phone. The screen cracked as it hit the floor, but I didn't care. The air in the room felt electrified, charged with a malevolent energy that made my skin crawl. I stumbled toward the door, flinging it open and practically tumbling into the hallway. The house was quiet, eerily so, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Every shadow seemed to shift and breathe, every creak of the floorboards echoing like a scream. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to get out. I reached the front door, fumbling with the lock when I heard it. A sound, soft at first but unmistakable. The chime of a notification. My phone. It was still in the bedroom, lying face up on the floor where I had dropped it. The sound echoed, down the hall, clear as a bell, mocking me. Then came another chime, and another. A rapid series of notifications, one after the other, as if whoever or whatever was on the other side was desperate to get my attention. I didn't want to look, but my feet moved on their own, dragging me back toward the source of the noise. I peered into the room, half expecting to see someone standing there, phone in hand, but it was empty. Just the cracked screen glowing faintly on the carpet. I crept closer, every instinct screaming at me to stop. The notifications had stopped, replaced by a low rhythmic hum that seemed to vibrate through the air. The phone screen flickered weakly as I picked it up, my reflection staring back at me through the spider-webbed glass. The app was still open, the chat window now filled with dozens of messages. They blurred together, lines of text overlapping, and shifting as if they were alive, but one stood out. It was larger than the rest, bold and centered at the top of the screen. You invited me. I stared at the words, my mind racing. The app, the damn app. I had opened the door thinking it was a joke, a harmless distraction, but it wasn't. It was something else entirely, and now it was here. The screen glitched, the text dissolving into static before one final message appeared. We never leave. I dropped the phone again, backing away as the hum grew louder, filling the room like a swarm of insects. The shadows in the corners seemed to move now, coalescing into shapes that I couldn't comprehend, shapes that didn't belong in this world. And then the light went out. Darkness swallowed the room in an instant. My chest tightened as I stumbled, backward, blindly feeling for the doorframe. The hum that had filled the room shifted, growing into something deeper, something alive. It wasn't a sound anymore. It was a presence, vast and oppressive, like standing at the edge of an abyss. The phone vibrated from where it lay on the floor, its glow faint but relentless. I could see it pulsing like a heartbeat, flashes of light cutting through the suffocating blackness. My feet refused to move, my body frozen in place as the shadows around me twisted, bending in ways that defied logic. The hum morphed again, splintering into whispers. Thousands of them, all at once, overlapping and competing for space in my ears. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, angry, accusing, like voices screaming from the depths of a well. One whisper rose above the rest, sharp and distinct. Stay! I turned and bolted, my hands outstretched, desperate to find the hallway. My fingers grazed the edge of the doorframe, and I threw myself forward, slamming into the wall. The impact jarred my senses, but I didn't stop. I ran blindly, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. The whispers followed me, growing louder with each step. I could feel them pressing against my back, cold and sharp like needles. I reached the stairs, nearly tripping as I stumbled down them two at a time. The house had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, the familiar layout warped into something unrecognizable. When I reached the front door, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the handle and yanked, but it didn't budge. The lock twisted and clicked under my frantic hands, but no matter what I did, the door wouldn't open. It was as if the house itself had decided to trap me, to hold me within its suffocating grip. Behind me, the hum intensified. It wasn't just sound anymore, it was weight, a physical force pressing against my shoulders, pulling me backward. I turned, and that's when I saw it. The shadows had taken form. They weren't human, not exactly. Their shapes flickered and shifted, humanoid but wrong, as if someone had tried to sculpt people out of smoke and broken glass. Their eyes were voids, endless black pits that seemed to pull the light from the room, and their mouths, those gaping, hollow voids that twisted and stretched, were filled with the whispers pouring out in an unending stream. They were reaching, for me. I screamed, throwing myself against the door with everything I had. My shoulder ached, and tears stung my eyes as I pounded on the wood, begging it to open. The shadows crept closer, their movements erratic and jerky like broken marionettes, and then the phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, I didn't want to touch it, but I had no choice. The vibrations seemed to shake the air around me, and I knew, deep down, I knew, that whatever was happening wasn't going to stop until I faced it. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. The screen had changed again. The chat window was gone, replaced by a single grainy image. It was me. I was standing in the entryway, my back to the camera. The shadows were behind me, closer than ever, their jagged edges almost brushing against my shoulders. And beneath the image, a message blinked in and out of focus. "Open the door!" I hesitated for only a second before twisting the lock again. This time it clicked. The door swung open with a groan, and I stumbled into the cold night air, my breath visible in the moonlight. I didn't stop running. My bare feet slapped against the pavement as I sprinted down the street, the phone clutched tightly in my hand. I didn't look back, didn't dare glance at the shadows I knew were still there, still watching. When I finally stopped, my lungs burning and my legs trembling, I found myself in front of a convenience store. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and bright, but they felt safe. I collapsed onto the curb, gasping for air, my phone heavy in my hand. The screen was blank now. No app, no messages, just the faint reflection of my face staring back at me. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then the phone buzzed. I almost didn't want to look. My thumb hovered over the screen, my body frozen with fear. But curiosity won out. I unlocked it and opened the notification. It wasn't the app this time. It was a text from a new number. "We are always with you." I dropped the phone. It skidded across the pavement, landing face down. The hum was gone, the whispers silent, but I knew better than to think I had escaped. I looked around the empty street, the stillness pressing down on me. The world seemed normal again, ordinary in its quiet simplicity. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that I would never be alone. The app wasn't just a game, it wasn't just a gimmick, it was an invitation, and I had accepted it.